So this is the Good Ride comparison slash sampler of some of our favorite short, fat, and surfy rides. Mainly dealing with the shorter ones. We have the United Shapes Orbit, the Burton Skeleton Key, the Rome Powder Division 153 Moontail, the Yes Optimistic 151, and the Salomon 6-stick 151. Skeleton Key. Six-stick in it. Bow Division. United Shapes Orbit. Optimistic. All of these boards are great in their own way and do a lot of different things. A quick summary, that's more of your all mountaineer, kind of can do a little bit of everything. This is your quick super turner. This just turns the tightest circles. This is great for powder, but it also just jams on carving up groomers really well. This is a more camber feel. This feels almost like full camber and is a little more technical, but probably the most poppy and drivey. Not bad on a straight line, really quick. And then the United Shapes Orbit is kind of the most aggressive of the lot. Feels the stiffest, the meanest, and you know, has the most power underneath, but it's also the most unforgiving. So there you have it. That's a quick summary. Let's get into just kind of everything here. In terms of flex, I want to flex these all because this is going to be a really quick review. Just kidding. This is going to take forever. This is like long. This has kind of a medium-ish flex, maybe bordering on medium stiff, especially in comparison to the rest of these boards. Now the Yes Optimistic is interesting because their site rates all their boards so stiff, but check this out. It's got almost a medium flex. It's soft. It's the softest board. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's the softest board in this group. And then this is kind of medium stiff, a little stiffer, but still kind of medium stiffish. Now the Burton, about the same as the Rome, maybe a touch stiffer, but a lot more camber and a lot more energy underfoot between this and this. And then here's the stiffest of the lot. Oh, I can barely get this to go. I'd have to be at the gym to get this to flex anymore. I'm not a gym guy either. So in terms of butterability, you know, you can butter this a little bit off the tail. Really the one you want, if you want to butter and you want to play around, that's the 6-stick. That's the one that rides switch the best, butters, and can have fun. That's the 6-stick. Then, you know, the Optimistic can butter a little bit off the tail, but even though it's a softer flex, it has all that camber. So it is a lot of work to get it to butter off the tail. The nose butter's a little better, but it's none of these boards are really that buttery. You know, but you know, as far as pop goes, the United Shapes and the Flight Attendant are by far the poppiest, then probably the Optimistic and 6-stick, and then, you know, the Rome. But, you know, in terms of the camber profiles, they all have slightly different camber profiles. They're all slight takes on, you know, kind of like camber dominant rides. This is modern camber, the Optimistic, and, you know, check the On the Table review on their review. But there's a little bit of early rise and kind of a mellow camber. It's not over the top, and it does a great job springing out of the turns. You know, this has a little you can kind of see like right here is where the rocker starts in the tip and tail. So it's got a good bit of camber with a, you know, a decent amount of rocker, but not a lot. So, but it's probably the most forgiving of all these boards. This is a very mellow camber off the tail, and then it just starts kind of S-ing up very mellowly though, and you can see the on the snow reviews. And then this just kind of has a little bit of early rise, and same with, and it's full camber, it's a big bow of camber, and same with the Orbit. And I'll just kind of show you each one really quick, but check the on the table reviews to kind of get a better idea. And you can see this, these look really camber dominant. Oh. And then you can see this one's pretty mellow. If I'm doing this right, I have trouble seeing the monitor. And then kind of see. Now I rode these 2 days with Atlas and Adidas Tactical ADVs. I did one groomer day you'll see in the videos, and then one kind of messy Monday with about 3 inches of powder on top of some pretty choppy, ugly snow. So I gotta, you know, normally I do it one day, but I thought I might as well just break this out and kind of evolve this a little more. You know, so they all have like, these have a very stable, semi-catchy, but you know, more on the stable side. This is pretty stable, pretty forgiving. These have a little more locked in feel, a little more camber consequence. So, you know, there's that. Edge hold, I think probably, you know, from what I felt, is the skeleton key probably the least when it starts to get hard. The Rome handle's okay, but it's kind of close to the skeleton key. The Orbit's a little better, but these two have the most grip. Then I would say it's the 6-stick. That's kind of, that can ride hard snow really well. It's got good grip. When I hit hard patches, it held well. Then this can actually handle ice too. It's not quite like full mag, but it's pretty close, and it grips really well. So, you know, there you have it with edge hold. As far as turn initiation goes, okay, this is the slowest to get the board edge to edge. But once the side cut is engaged, it turns the fastest and the tightest circle. This is kind of medium fast, medium-ish, and it's kind of a balance between the two. You can get it edge to edge pretty quick. Now, this one, despite its width, turns pretty fast too, kind of medium fast. You can get it where you want it when you need it. Now, the flight attendant's my favorite for the quick turn initiation. It's just always there when you want it, like this. Once the side cut's engaged, it doesn't have a real super tight radius. It likes drawn out S turns, especially when you get up into the 58. I'm kind of between the 54 and the 58, and I chose to size down to make it a little more fun for me, a little more playful, because I have big floaty powder boards, so I don't really need it in the deepest of deep, or I don't really need a bomb. It's a fun tree board. And then the Orbit's kind of like somewhere in between the flight attendant, I mean, not the flight attendant, the skeleton key, and the optimistic. It can do some pretty tight carves, but it can also do some, you know, it can also bomb. It's got a nice side cut, especially for those that like to carve and like to get a little speed and get air. Now, the turning experience with all of these boards is truly fun. They're all just a little different. This is a lot more double ender feel. This, you can drive off your front foot, you can drive centered, you can lean off your back, and it's not very washy. Same with the Optimistic, which is kind of cool. And the Optimistic's one of my favorites because I love those tight turns. I love just, you know, just engaging that side cut and just having it just kind of accelerate through the turn. It's so much fun. This one probably, you know, with the least camber, it's still a super fun board to turn, but it's not quite in the realm of these other boards. These other boards are made to really shine on groomers. Now, the skeleton key, oh, so much pop. It's such a fun, springy board edge to edge. It's a really great turning experience. And then same with the Orbit. The Orbit feels a little more aggressive, but it's got that powerful poppy turn, but you've got to have some strength to it to make it work. Now, carving, I just love carving the Orbit. That thing just, you know, when you get good groomers, it just really just all that camber, you know, from the back foot to, you know, from the tail to just a little past to about right here, is amazing, and it just springs out of a turn. Same with the skeleton key. It just needs, you know, a little softer snow, and it's just a joy to carve. This is not as good carving as these boards, the Rome powder division, but it's still very fun and very doable. It's not really going to hinder your carving if you know, just set the stance forward a little bit and just lay into it, and it's pretty good, you know, but it's more of a good condition carver. And then this is like this, and probably the Orbit, but with the skeleton key really close, is one of my favorite carvers. It just, because it all depends on who you are though. If you like longer drawn out carves, then, you know, maybe the skeleton key or that, or maybe even the, you know, like the Libtech Orca, which is an honorable mention here. It's a very fun board, and I've recently been on it and compared it against a lot of these. That's more for the fun, like more bomby S-turny, long S-turn kind of carves. This is that short. This is the fat S. You know, it does that so well, and I just love riding that. And the six sticks kind of not quite with these three, you know, like the Orbit, the skeleton key, and the Optimistic. But again, it's like best compromise board. You can really lay out a hard carve. It's got good grip. It can handle a carve and harder snow than these boards. But it also like does so many other things. So it like ticks that carving box really well, and it's got a lot of camber and spring and pop. So it's really fun. In terms of speed, it's all about the Orbit. That 151, they came out with a 54 now, and I don't even want it. You know, same with a friend of mine, Mason at Gravity Sports. He's like, I was pretty excited when they got the 154, but then I realized I've never wanted more from that 51, and I feel exactly the same as him. It just doesn't, it's just so much board. I really don't know what I would do with a 54. Same with this Optimistic, but it bombs, and it's you know, it's not great in like that micro bumpy, poorly groomed runs that are kind of hard because it's so stiff, it just reverberates. It has almost that little bit of that reverse chatter. But when the groomers are clean, that thing is so stable and fast. It's unbelievable. You know, the skeleton key can bomb for a 54, especially for its kind of, you know, a little softer flex in the United shapes. This can bomb pretty well too. This bombs surprisingly well for how deep the side cut is. I would think it would be a little more hooky, a little more unstable, but this really, when you lay it flat on the snow, it really tracks well and goes. And then this is pretty good, but again, not quite all there with these guys, but still you can bomb for it with it, no problem. Now, uneven terrain, again, like I said with the, you know, the United Shapes Orbit, it doesn't really have that kind of like amazing micro bumpy kind of stuff, but it can weave in and out of bumps super quick and easy because of that short, you know, it's a little short and not super fat, just kind of medium fat. And I just love that. I can turn through bumps really well. It's a little more unforgiving, even with my just super shock absorbent tactical ADVs, but it still does a great job. This is just, if you're a Saturday resort rider and you spend a lot of time riding in uneven snow, this skeleton key is just a dream. I love this 54 for hammering through bumps and going over them, weaving in and out of them. It's got such cool flex tech that the flex is poppy and energetic yet it absorbs shock, and it's just an amazing balance of pop and shock absorption and dampness. It's a great, Burton really does amazing things with their flexes. Same with this Rome, the 153 MT. I had no problem weaving through bumps. It's a little wide for me. It's a little wider than those two boards, but still, for its waist width and, you know, for what it is, for its overall width, it did a great job. Then we got the Optimistic. It's a little wider, even though the waist width is a little, it seems a little narrower than you would think, but if you look at the nose and tail, they're super wide because it's just got this really deep side cut. And it's great when the bumps are drawn out, like, or if you're doing a bank slalom, it blows doors, it shines, it's so much fun to do that. But if you're just dealing with those tight spots and trees, or, you know, a chute that has some bumpy areas and tight, you know, you're in a lot of tight spots, it doesn't do this really well, like really fast. It likes doing this. But it's still fun on a powder day. You can take it in the trees. You just have to plot, you know, it just can't be super tight. And it just doesn't like those bumpy runs. I found this to be a lot more work than a lot of other boards. And then the 6-stick does really well too. The Salomon can weave in and out of bumps super well. And it does a great job at like turning quick enough to not make it bad. I was just, you know, riding through a bunch of bumps earlier today on this board, and I was like, this isn't bad. But it has that kind of like the United Shapes Orbit. It's just missing some dampening properties that the other boards have in that messy, bumpy, uneven snow, and it kind of like reverberates and chatters a little more. But it's definitely not as bad as a lot of other boards. And since it has that kind of like, that a little bit softer, medium-ish flex, it's not as punishing as some of the other boards. But that's like one of the biggest complaints with Salomon. The minute you get into the micro bumpy stuff, or you're hammering through a lot of chundery, uneven snow, it can reverberate a little more, but it's much better than it used to be. Maybe it's just that I'm, you know, really on some shock absorbent bindings and boots, but it does a good job, good enough for Saturday resort riding, but not like the Skeleton Key. I mean, that thing jams. And then, you know, switch. The 6-stick is the one. The rest is just, you don't even really want to talk about, you know. They're just really not boards that ride switch well. And that's what shines for this board. It makes it, this feels the most like, you know, they call it what do they call it? A tapered twin. And it sounds so silly, but when you get on it and you actually ride it, you're like, yeah, I get it. This is a tapered twin. This has that really cool, like, tapered feel a little bit in powder, but it feels so centered, and it rides switch so well. It's almost like a lot of all mountain boards I have. It rides, you would never think it would ride this well switch with 10 mil, I think it's 10 mil of taper. And now powder, this is the first board I'd want to be on, the mountain division. But all these other boards do a great job. I'd say the 6-stick is the least there. But the Optimistic, even with its modern camber, has an extra insert, and it's still gonna float like a champ. This is the floater though. And then these are like, these three kind of come in right behind it. They each have their own way of float. The Skeleton Key has a lot of setback on board. So does the United Shape. So if you set it all the way back, or you use the setback inserts on the United Shapes, you'll get some really good directional float for how much camber there is there. That combination of setback, a little bit of taper, and early rise do a great job. This floats incredibly well too. This is the best for riding switch and powder occasionally, you know, buttering on your nose to switch and just kind of landing kickers switch. That's the best one for that, but it's the most work on the back leg. But you know, when we're talking park, like, not really, no, none of these. I mean, the Skeleton Key and Orbit can hit a kicker really well, as long as, you know, landing switch isn't ideal, but it does a good job. good enough job for what it is. But those have the pop, and those are really fun riding pipe if the pipe's a little, you know, if the walls aren't super hard. But the six sticks, where like that shines, that has the strongest mountain freestyle characteristics. It's kind of up there with, I like it more actually than the Ride War Pig, but that's a super fun board too in its own way. I just feel like when in comparison to the War Pig, I had so much more fun turning on the six stick. So that kind of like, that swayed me towards that. But it's got that same kind of War Pig thing where it's not just a short, fatty, surfy board. It's a short, fat mountain freestyle, tapered mountain freestyle weirdness board. This can go on the pipe. This can hit kickers. Probably not best on jibs. I'd probably rather be on the War Pig for that. But it can butter, it can play around, it can do so many different things that these, you know, mainly directional boards can't. And so that's what I love about the six stick. It just does a little bit of everything. You can go ride the pipe, you can carve, you can butter, you can ride switch, you get a little bit of extra float and powder. It's a great one board quiver. These are great one board quivers for directional riders, but if you want a little bit more of that, you know, you don't want to forget, like, you know, 5 years ago when everything was twins. If you still like riding switch like I do and buttering around and playing, that's fun for those kind of days. So that's the park shiner. The rest are really just kind of, you know, leave them at home, maybe slash a quarter pipe wall, or, you know, slash through the pipe, but that's about it. You know, hit a kicker or two, but none of these boards you really want to jib with. And overall, they all have their own personalities, like I've highlighted here, and I think they just all do shine in their own way. You know, the super fast, super tight circle turner, the kind of all mountain freestyle, all mountain short fatty. You know, the powder, the best in powder. And then, you know, the more camber dominant, more technical, poppy, super powerful boards, you know, a little softer and then a little stiffer. They all shine in their own way, and I think they all, you know, can make riders really happy. And there's so many other boards that are great out there too, but these are our short fatties that we love, or close to short fatty. And I hope this helps.